You're tuned into RX'D Radio. Movement prescribed. Brought to you by Prescript.com. A personalized approach to keeping you healthy and making your best even better. Your hosts, Dr. Jiunta Shallow and Dr. Jiunta.
Do we do like a welcome back thing? Is that how this works?
I think it's necessary.
What was the
at
last
this point.
time we did this?
It's been a long
What was
fucking
the last
time.
You are by far, as the co-host, the most requested guest on this show.
At least that makes my heart feel good.
Oh, dude, people have been down with this since the dribble, and it's like this is the original dynamic. Dude, Killian comes in and just is like a what's the right word? He's like what are the people? A nihilist. He's like this nihilistic communist academic lifter and with no facial expression at all. But I can't remember the last. It would have been California.
Yeah, last February maybe.
But the thing is, I think Killian was still on those episodes.
I think so too.
So I can't remember the last time. Like, was it Adirondack Chair Days?
Probably.
Is it literally been years since me and you have been in a room, just us doing a podcast?
It's been years.
That's fucking insane.
It's heartbreaking, man.
It's wild because, like, it's funny. We start the podcast every single time prior to starting going, what do you want to talk about? We've said the words, what do you want to talk about, to each other 200 times, maybe more.
Yeah.
And so I have a podcast note on my phone. And I don't know where I was going with this. And this speaks to, I think, your experience in having to deal with me as a human being over the course of the last, how long was it? We met in 2001. Or 2011, sorry.
2011.
So it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? Because it would have been October 1st.
Yep.
2011 would have been the first day of, like,
San Jose,
he walked
California,
in,
Palmer
West.
orientation.
It was a prison yard. That's what it was. I remember I was sitting in the back, and I was like, all right, who's going to be the biggest fucker on cell block D? Who's it going to be? And I saw Dickinson
It wasn't me.
Well, I saw Dickinson first, and I was like, all right, Dickinson was
fucking cauliflower ass.
He just screamed. He was just like, he's American as apple pie.
Yep.
Tyler Dickinson, he's got like a few kids now. He's got a practice in St. John, Michigan. He was like an all-state, all-country, whatever wrestler. Like, he is whatever Jack was from Jack and Diane from John Cougar Mellencamp. He's as American as that. Yeah. And I saw Dickinson. I was like, all right, like, homie's like, there was a bicep vein there. And I was like, all right, that's a contender. And then I was like, I just remember you had a dumb-colored shirt on. It was like
dumb. Like, what's a dumb color?
Well, any color for us now is a dumb color.
This is all I own now.
But it was like maybe it was green or like a heather red or something like that. And again, dude, I saw the cauliflower ear and I saw the bicep vein. And I was like, okay, this dude looks dangerous. Like, this dude looks like someone I don't want to get on the wrong side of. And that was 10 fucking years ago. Dude, that's wild. A third of our lives.
Yeah, is. That's very literally a third of our lives.
Holy shit.
Dang.
But people don't realize what it's like to have to deal with me for a decade. Very few people have done it successfully. Other than my parents and my mom, everyone else is like, I got a few homies from back home, is like, whatever, we've known you since you were 5. Everyone else, a couple years in, like, yo, I'm out. Like, I used to call you. So I used to text him before, and I used to be like, yo, don't answer the phone. I just need to scream into the abyss. And so you would just get these voicemail messages from me just going full send, head first into the deep end.
Yep.
And this is just to give you an insight as to what that stream of consciousness looks like. On my podcast note with ideas, I have no idea when I wrote this. I have no idea, like, what triggered it. Step 1 for podcast ideas. Opinionated people can go fist themselves. I wrote that. I took the time to be like, we need to talk about this. Opinionated people need to go fist themselves.
So that's a very strong opinion. What
are you telling? You just told me to go fist myself?
I don't know. Take it as you may. But what led you to that thought?
So okay. So when I was traveling,
Right.
back from the States. I think this was it.
So was this COVID era?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
This was COVID times. And I think it was COVID was the impetus to it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I think I was traveling and I put up a post about, COVID or something like that. And people were just so quick to slide in the DM and being like, oh, like, you're insensitive, you're this, you're that. Because, like, opinions are this, they don't really, they're not, it's not like this is a desk, this is a cell phone, but like what is an opinion and why are people so strongly attached to their opinions?
Opinions are feelings, right?
Are opinions feelings?
I think so.
Okay, so this is where
feelings
I have a hard
mixed with
time.
viewpoints, maybe?
Yeah, because like I obviously don't do feelings well. That's an inside joke right now that none of you will ever get. But like, is that why I don't understand people's opinions?
I think so.
Because I don't understand like the emotion behind it.
Probably. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's like an emotionally charged viewpoint, right? That's an opinion. I have these views on this specific issue, and then that's what kind of drives them to feel a certain way.
Okay, so maybe I can understand theoretically emotions. I get it. I get the idea of it. But what I don't understand is people's wantingness or almost borderline needingness to voice their opinions. Mm-hmm. This is where I have a real hard time. Like, I grew up in a place where if you voiced your opinion and it wasn't the popular opinion of the room, there was a consequence held for that. So it's like, there's so many times, and honestly, only if you've ever been in, I think, a longer-term relationship do you learn this lesson as an adult. Like, if you grew up in a place where you weren't going to get punched in the head, or someone wasn't going to, if they felt strongly about an opposing opinion, really manifest physical consequence on you. At least, okay, if you didn't have that childhood, if you enter into a relationship as an adult, a semi-adapted human being, you at some point certainly weigh out saying things. Like, I can't count the number of times in relationships in the past where I do like, you can tell when some people are about to say something, right? There's the hand gestures, there's opening of the mouth, there's like raising of the eyebrows. And there's been so many times where I've caught myself and as I'm expressing the intent to start talking, the consequence comes through. It's not worth it. It's not, whatever my opinion is on the issue is just, and then the hand closes, retracts towards me, the eyebrows sink down, my mouth, and I just start walking away. It's like when a dog walks to the room and you call it towards you. It has no idea where it was going before you called it. It's like you forever changed the course of history of that dog. And that's how I feel with like opinions. And I've learned that as a kid because it's like, you know what I think? Whack! I think you should shut the fuck up is what you think. And it's like, okay, fair point. As an adult who's been in and out of serious relationships in the last however 7 years, some including lawyers, some not, and having this moment of like, I'm going to say it. No, you're not. And I just keep my opinion to myself. So I understand theoretically how emotions could formulate people's opinions.
Right.
What I don't understand is the application side of why it is people feel like it's okay to voice their opinions about things.
That I have no insight into.
So like, all right, here's a question. You're a LeBron guy?
Not so much.
No?
Not a basketball guy.
But like, if you had to pick like a good athlete, LeBron's got to answer.
Right. LeBron.
LeBron guy, you Connie? Yeah? Sorry,
Right.
no, LeBron or Jordan?
I gotta say Jordan.
Right, he's got the Tupac shirt on. I know you were going old school with it. But it's like, LeBron has come out in the social activism sphere, right? It's like, he goes hard in the paint, no doubt. But do I give a fuck about his opinion about, I don't know, Indian journalists or comedians? Like, at what point does your opinion over or superimpose with an authority where you have an obligation to voice it? And at what point do you assume that you don't have an authority, so you should shut the fuck up?
I think that's the problem is people without an authority don't know that, and they just want to be heard.
Right.
But someone like LeBron, a lot of people look up to him. He's very influential. He's got a big reach. So if he feels strongly about something, If he feels strongly about something and he wants to make it change in favor of that thing, then his opinion is going to matter in the fact that it's going to pick up traction with people that that resonates with.
Okay.
Right?
Right. So my argument to that is like influence over impact. LeBron 100% could start a hashtag about something. But you're just going to reach the sphere of social slacktivists online who are going to repost your hashtag, right? Like Gandhi organized the Salt March without a hashtag. Impactful.
Well, that's the thing. It's social media isn't actionable, right? There needs to be a call to action for it to be actual impact.
Subscribe
as opposed to
RX
influence,
Radio
right?
podcast.
Yes. Subscribe to RX Radio. So in that aspect, it's social media may not be the best platform for this, but rich people have rich people friends. Rich people like to impress their rich people friends by using their money to, sway influence or donate to this charity or things like this, right? So there's outside of the sphere of social media, like real world actionable things, he still has the influence and can create an impact with that influence with actionable items, right? Because of who he is and because of the love and support that he gets from
So you
his
think
fans.
There's an indirect net benefit to people who carry so much influence that there's an overlap of a Venn diagram between influence and impact if your sphere of influence becomes large enough to start to touch into the sphere of impact.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I think of it, I kind of relate it back to what I do in my business. Like I did a call with Palmer West students like 2 weeks ago.
That's funny. I never got that email.
I know.
That's weird.
It was the most ridiculous. I apologize I saw they were recording. I'm like, all right, I'm going to try not to offend anyone. I'm sorry. But like, they were asking how I get people in my doors. I'm like, honestly, I never tried. The most, I don't know which one to use here, impactful, influential thing that I've had to drive people towards my business is word of mouth from other people saying that I did a good job. Right. So kind of along that line of thinking, impact, it comes from people that you give a shit about what they think. Right. And if they have opinions, that opinion is going to hold more weight than, to me, LeBron's opinion, it doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
But, I want to make my dad proud. So when my dad gives me his opinion, I'm probably going to listen to his more so than LeBron James.
Right. But I think, I don't know if that's an apt analogy, man, because, like, people come to you because of what you do. Right?
Right.
And I think there's an overlapping sphere of influence with what you do and how you do it, where it's like you're a walking billboard for yourself. Right, you are a walking proof of concept, right? Like anyone who sees you move a barbell is like, yo, this guy's different. Like you're one of the best weightlifters in the country, and you did it by accident. You did it in the middle of like a chipper EMOM WOD or whatever the fuck. You're like, oh man, if I stop these handstand walks, I'm actually like one of the best weightlifters in the country. So people, I think amongst many other skills and talents you have, it's just you do the damn thing because you don't talk about it, right? Where it's like, if LeBron was to open, a basketball school in Nairobi or some shit, I would be like, yeah, 100%, man. Your sphere of influence, your level of impact, those can superimpose very well. But it's like, dude, if I see Leo DiCaprio at another UN summit, are you joking me? What do you do? Like you fought a fake bear in that one movie and you ripped coke off of a stripper's ass in Wolf of Wall Street. Does anyone
Legend.
Like Trump is sitting there getting roasted because he's grabbing him by the box and he's and everyone's like, what the fuck? But all of a sudden, it's like Leo does it, but there's Jerry Bruckheimer behind the film. It's like, this brilliant. Yes, palm oil is bad. No one should eat Nutella. It's like, I don't know. Like, I struggle with domains of competency. Like, I'm a big stay in your fucking lane guy, right? That's why we talk about what we talk about. It's because we do what we talk about, right? We talk about what we do, where it's like, in the fitness space, there are people who think they have PhDs in everything. It's like, look, if it's nutrition, protein, bioenergetics, whatever the fuck, that is your lane. It is a very small lane which you drive your very small vehicle in. Go ahead and don't come into our lane. And we don't talk. If we talk nutrition, we bring on experts. Like, hey, Phil Smith. Hey, Jason Phillips. Hey, hybrid training and nutrition. What do you got to say? And it's like we just sit there like, hey, we're idiots. We're consumers of this information. But I think a lot of people, like, especially with their opinions, and like COVID is the elephant in the room, obviously, right? Because dude, we got guys like fighters that I work with. It's like fighting is a self-promoting sport. Conor McGregor has all the negotiating power going into a fight because he doesn't need to go into the fight. Yeah. Right? I'm gonna sell myself. I'm my shitty whiskey. I beat up old guys in the bar. I'm throwing chairs through buses. Like, I don't need to fight on the UFC. So it's like, if that's the guy who. So I actually got this from Hayden. It's like, the person who can walk away holds the greatest amount of power in a negotiation, right? So it's like, I'm dealing with fighters right now who, like, I'm trying to explain to them as some jackass who runs a company on the internet, like, look, man, self-promotion is a big deal, right? Purveying an image of competency and building your brand around your values. Brand and values are really the same thing, right? They're your business representation. Your brand is a business's representation or business representation of your values, right? So it's like, here we got these kids who are like prepping for fight camps. It's like, I don't want to see anything from the CDC. You look, dude, you can't spell CDC. You throw those 6-ounce gloves on and you start throwing mittens. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Like, I struggle with, like, where's the line? Where's the line between, look, LeBron could really bring light to any social injustice in the entire world. Kids making fucking cheap clothes in Malaysia for Zara that are end up ruining the environment. You know, people in China being held in camps, Indian comedians being arrested and persecuted. LeBron can do that. So he's got such a global reach where, yes, if he shines his light on something will grow out of that situation. You know, you're an undercard UFC fighter and you're trying to be on the come up. Where do you draw the line? Like, what is the number? What is the social recognition that you need to just, fuck it, say it, who cares? Versus like, hey man, maybe you should shut the fuck up. You're not good enough at the thing that you claim to be good enough at. We don't have enough trust to transfer over to you figuring out COVID.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand the motivation behind people who speak outside their sphere of influence on the whole.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to that either, because very much so I stay within my lane in terms of those things. So I think it should always start within kind of your network, right. The people that you know and you talk to, and it gets a little bit weird once it kind of flows outside of that, especially if it's something that it's not rooted in your values or kind of your belief system. Then it's, you know, what is the real intention behind it? I guess
this is where the social brownie points come in. And this is what I can't stand. Like, someone told me on a thing the other day, like, be better. At what? Chess? What do you mean, be better? Be better mean have the same opinion as you? And this is where I think I wrote down, go fist yourself. Because as I'm reliving this in my head, that's exactly what I wanted to tell this guy. Right? Because it's like, what is the validation? Like, what is the currency that people are looking to collect? Like, what is the marginalized, like... Because the thing with, like, if I was in LeBron's situation, there are so many social issues in the world, right? Like, I'm sure if you go to, like, the Congo, there's probably some shit going on in the backwoods. Because that's the thing, right? I remember, like, I don't know, I feel like COVID has consumed the news media for so long that it's like, remember when people were just getting, like, there was weird massacres in cities? Like, that was, like, a thing. Right? When every fucking 2 weeks, Facebook had a filter and you were praying for another city somewhere. If you notice, that hasn't happened in like 2 years. Like, there hasn't been and maybe I'm just totally missing it and I'm not looking close enough. I'm trying to keep my head in something, sand, water, a vat of acid, anything to keep my fucking head out of the 24-hour news cycle. Right. But it's like, dude, for 5 years, maybe even longer than that, man. Like, kind of stemming from, you know, you had terrorist attacks, you had London City bombing, you had obviously 9/11. Then you moved into like school shooting era, right? And then that was this, you know, Columbine led off into Sandy Hook where you sort of started to tail off. Then you had, you know, extremist terrorist groups, Charlie Hebdo. You had some things over in, I want to say Spain. There was that runaway car that was plowing people over. Then you had the Vegas shooter. And so it's like, every week it was like, oh, here's a pray for France thing, and you can put a picture of you next to the Eiffel Tower with like the France flag superimposed. But it's like, what is the currency that people are trying to collect in now? Like, it gets a rallying cry. It's like people don't have any fucking purpose in their life. So I know, like, why don't you, hey man, why don't you post? I've had people message me and be like, why aren't you posting about COVID? I don't know. I got it once. I couldn't smell bacon. It kind of sucked for a few weeks, and then I was over it. Because that's why. That doesn't make me an expert on it. Like, I know people who've had cancer that aren't trying to, like, in the lab next week going, this is my hill to die on. I just don't understand, and maybe I never understood, like, why people need to project their opinions ultimately. Well, like, what is the feeling that you get?
Why do we do anything, to be honest?
Why do we do this? Right.
What's the reason? The only reason in my mind that people do anything is because it makes them feel good.
Right. Okay. That's fair.
I can't see any other motivation behind that to do anything, right?
So I would go a little bit deeper and say, like, something self-preserving. But maybe we've lost that, right? Because maybe we don't need to think in self-preserving mechanisms or self-preserving terms.
Right, but that's still under, like, an idealism that makes you feel good, right? So at the root of it, that's where I think it all comes from. So it's like either self-validation or validation from others is, I think, kind of the root of it. So they're adopting this cause, this thing that they're going to fight for simply because it makes them feel good. Or the validation makes it. One of those two things makes them feel good. So
my question is, why is there an absence? What is the absence? Because, like, I don't necessarily give a fuck. Right? Like, I give a fuck about, like, literally one thing. And I'm pretty open with, like, I love my job. Yeah. And I've had to tell people that I've loved that you're coming in the 2 spot. Because my job's got number 1 locked up.
Right.
And it's like, so I don't understand what is missing. Or why does it seem now more than ever? Maybe it's always been the fact that things have been missing and social media can just put this up in front of us. Like, why do you need to be happy by like, what makes you happy about posting about this?
Well, it's literally a drug, right? Isn't that the thing behind it? Like, I don't know if you saw was it The Social Dilemma? It's
I never saw it.
It basically talks about how, like, Gmail, Facebook, Instagram, all these things, it's a fucking drug, and it gives you these chemical reactions that make you feel good. So on that side of things, it's this outsourced version of pleasure that if I do this and other people support this, then they're going to tap the like button and it's going to make me feel good. And I'm on drugs, so I'm going to keep doing this because I'm getting positive reinforcement because it makes me feel good. Not necessarily that I'm doing this, that I'm reaping the rewards of the likes and the comments and the shares because I do this.
Man, I'd rather people do actual drugs.
Yeah.
Because at least, so here's my thing with drugs. Like, I was a pretty like, recreational drug guy for a pretty long time. I think we could go back and listen to the podcast, or, like, I'm kind of like, whatever. I think you should, like, drugs are fun. Right? There's so much fun they could ruin your life. That's how much fun they are. But they're fun if you've earned the right to have fun. Right? Like, if you take mushrooms at 18, you'll watch Fantasia and it'll ruin your life. If you take them at 30 and you're not doing it to try and figure your shit out, like, if you go to therapy as an adult, and this is something that I've been pretty open with, it's like, I've seen a shrink for a handful of years now. It's a pretty weekly occurrence, and it's something that it's honestly, when I stopped calling, find the last day I left you a voicemail of me just yelling into the abyss. From then on, it's been a shrink. Right. So it's like, I would rather, like, because if we're all chasing that feeling, if we all want to feel good, and that's what drives our decision-making process, I would rather that be internal than external. Because it's like...
Self-induced, you mean?
Self-induced, yeah.
Like masturbation?
Yeah, maybe that's a better way to put it. Well, because just for me, like, that's an experience, man. Like, if you... and I'm like, good, I don't want this to be a drug thing, but, like... I've definitely in the last couple of years turned into somewhat of an experienced junkie.
Oh my God.
But no, like, not in a bad way, dude. Like, experience could be like, hey, like, I'll gladly wake up at 4 a.m. to go walk somewhere to fucking sit with a chick and go watch the sunrise. Dude, me 5 years ago, go fuck yourself. Like, I am not, but it's a cool experience, man. Like, I think once you get a glimpse at, like, yo, we're not here for a very long time. Right? So I've definitely become more open to the idea of just collecting experiences. Like, I love sitting down and being, oh, yeah, I've been there. Oh, cool. Where's that? Oh, tell me about it.
I thought you said experienced junkie, not experienced junkie.
Oh.
So that totally switched my train of thought right there.
Punctuation, friend.
Oh, fuck.
But no,
but yes, no, I agree with that.
Right. So it's, but like, dude, there's such, I don't get it. And I was talking to Killian about this the other day, but like, we're in such a, like me and you, Connie, how old are you, bro?
28.
Okay. So you're same generation as us. We're 30. There's a weird thing. We're in a weird bubble of old and new school where it's like, this is a comparison I've made in the past. If you were, so I've read a book by Robert Browning, and we talked about it in the past. It's called Ordinary Men. It's about like these German dudes that were cops, and they're like in their 30s. And then Hitler, he failed out of art school and got real pissed. And then he went and did Hitler things. And he was like, all right, well, hey, you're German cops, now you're Nazi cops now. So, and the guy's like, fuck, I just want to go home and like have my dinner and go to bed. Like, fuck, all right, what do I got to do? And that's pretty, that's shitty. My neighbor's Jewish. That's kind of weird. So they weren't like bought into the propaganda, right? Dude, you talk to a 20-year-old now, I don't like to use the word retarded. I don't. We go back in podcasts in the past, and it's like, it's the only word that comes to mind. And here's the thing, and here's how you're going to divide it up, because that's a bad word to say. But it's a bad word to say because of the frailty that's coming up in a generation beneath us. Anyone who's 30 and over, for the most part, is going to hear me say that, and they're probably going to laugh because they know that they've said it before, not with ill intentions in their heart. And that's why I have such an issue with words like that. Dude, Louis C.K. did a bit using the F word, not fuck, the other one. And it's like, that was like maybe 10 years ago. And it's like, no one thought he was homophobic. He skirted so many lines even a decade ago that if you pulled that bit up now, it'd be over. But I think there's such a uniqueness about like maybe 25 outer limits to like maybe 35, maybe a little bit less, like maybe 25 to 30. So if you're like a 95 to a 90, maybe an 87, you had enough personal development and experience as a kid in real life, and then there was a digital augment to that experience, but it never negated your actual boots on the ground, real world, cut up bloody knee experience as a kid. You know, staying out past the street lights, playing fucking sports with your friends. You weren't super worried about like the John Baptiste of the world coming to kidnap you. The world was like an accessible place where you learn consequences out in the real world. Past that, and people who may have heard me say the R word then, and like forced social censorship to me, like even me saying the R word is compromising to myself because like I don't mean anything by it. And only people I think who were met with technology after their values were instilled in them or built by them understand that. Because now it's like, and I never saw The Social Dilemma, but it'd be interesting to kind of get into the neuroscience behind it with people who knew what the fuck they were talking about other than us, because I don't want to necessarily voice my opinion without knowing what I'm talking about. But I feel like we see this with physiology, right? There's tertiary growth centers in your body that, depending on your gender and development, don't close until you're 25, right? Tertiary ossification centers in some of your bones as a male, probably not till 25. Right? So you can see kids 23 still kind of filling out and getting bigger. That's roughly like go. I have a feeling that in your brain, cortical activity is probably similar. That you're not like, dude, and just think of it this way. At 23, did you have any idea what the fuck was going on?
Not the slightest.
No idea. Even now at 30, we're still like, I don't know. But I think that generation where it's like, look, man, when did you sign up to Facebook?
Maybe like the end of high school?
So yeah, 18.
Ish?
Right.
I can't remember exactly.
And Facebook back then was quite benign.
Yeah. It was like a wall that you like wrote things on.
Right. We talked about our Instagram inception. # show me your tits.
Yes. Yes. Very thoughtful.
Right.
Stand by it to this day.
I didn't do it until maybe halfway through grad school. Through Palmer, I started my Muscle Doc account. And that was the
probably
first
right around
Instagram
then.
I had.
Maybe a little before
probably
that I started.
Around the same. So 2021-ish?
No.
No,
It's
older.
2020.
22?
Oh, age.
Oh, no, sorry. Our age. How old were we?
Oh, yeah, probably like 22-ish.
I kind of like imagine being inundated with the pitch and frequency of social media trends
during those
12.
more developmental phases. Yeah.
Right?
The YouTube kids are glued to YouTube now.
Twitch.
I don't even really understand what Twitch is.
That's what I remember when Vine came out. I was like, what are we doing here? Vine? It's like 6-second videos. It's like the only 6-second video that's ever funny is man gets hit in the groin with football. That little bit from The Simpsons where it's just like Hans, the old guy, who gets hit in the groin with a football. And then Vine went out. Snapchat came around, and it was like, all right, yeah, not really a thing. I'm not a dick pic guy. Just on the whole, the idea of the dick pic is like, dude, you're going to pay for that. Look at Anthony Weiner. Best. Like, that is the universe giving you a beautiful
so harmonious
gift. Just like, here's a wrapped up bent cock for your entertainment.
That was his fate, man.
You thought it's like naming your kid Jeeves. Like, what did you think? He was going to be an astronaut? Obviously, Jeeves is a butler. Anthony Weiner, dick pic to minors.
Yep.
But it's like I honestly think that we're in such a unique generation that is within Generation X or Z or Millennial or whatever.
Yeah.
That had, I think, at least a formed value structure enough that it couldn't be easily, not that it couldn't be swayed, but for those who kind of had their feet under them and had gained some real world experience by the time they were like 18, couldn't be easily swayed. We couldn't be indoctrinated by social propaganda, but we can understand it. Past that, like my sister's, 3-4 years older, she's kind of past it. Like she's, what is this? What are you kids doing on the internet here? And we can sit here and be like, this thing is powerful. Like whatever this thing is has to be feared and respected. Yeah. Generation above, kind of like, whatever. I still have at AOL email. And generation below is like just, they're robots, man. Like they're just filtering their own experience. And these are the kids that can sit there and watch other people play video games. Yeah. Or these are the kids that are sit there and just like, dude, I never wanted to sit on the sidelines as a kid. And I was a fat kid who was terrible at sports. Put me in, coach, was like my tagline. Right? Like I hated the idea.
You ever play video games growing up?
Up until maybe, I think when I moved to Toronto, I bought a PlayStation, one of the PlayStations, because it had a DVD player as well.
Nice.
Dude, how dating is that?
Yeah.
Dude, it had a Blu-ray.
DVD.
It had a Blu-ray player.
Do you remember what it felt like to be like the third kid in the room when there's only 2 controllers?
Just waiting for a controller? Yeah. I'm just sitting there
like,
going
that's
like,
how
you're out, dude. It's my turn, bro.
You're like giving yourself that fate. That fucking sucks.
Yeah, and that's the whole world. It's like...
That's the whole world.
It is. Like the voyeurism. Like the chasm that is dividing between those on the field of play and those in the stand, which is crazy. Do you know who Eric Weinstein is? So Eric and Brett Weinstein, they're like dark web academics. It's like this whole intellectual dark web. Like, I don't know this. I don't get into like, liberal leftists and right wing Breitbart, like that weird social conversation that divides like blue versus red, donkey versus elephants, the Red Sox versus the Yankees or whatever the fuck. Like I don't really get into that too much, but stemming from like a right of far left, I don't want to say the right wing. There's like these academics from different disciplines. Like that Jordan Peterson guy was like one of the major ones. Ben Shapiro is like more of a political one. But in this, there's like this physicist guy. And he's actually a polymath, I think. And his name's Eric Weinstein. And him and his brother Brett was like a part of something where he worked at a college that got super liberal and ended up like trying to get him removed. He ended up having to leave the job for being too political about, he was an evolutionary biologist. And they tried to get rid of it because they said something about his discipline was like unscientific or untrue. And he was basically saying that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, or something along those lines. He's like, guys, if you don't want to stick with like biology and you want to let the social, justice thing kind of run away with it. Anyways, his brother has this theory of everything. And it's a deep physics theory, and it's like talking about Einstein's relativity and going beneath, like trying to understand how all the particles in the world work, some crazy shit like that. Anyways, the point is, he talks about this multiverse that has literally players on the field and a reflection of things in the stands, which is you'd have to listen to the theory, but it's really interesting because it's exactly what I see happening play out. Like if we're all just a bunch of neurons in some science experiment, or all a bunch of electrons in some alien science experiment or some simulation, what he's saying about how the whole universe works and what I'm seeing and how human beings are a part of that universe is so parallel to me. Where he talks about like there's the pitch and then there's the stands. And that's what I see now more than ever. It's like there are people who are totally cool and sitting on the sidelines, and there are people who are on the field of play. And then there's this like sort of just observer relationship. And it's always like the guy with Cheeto dust on his fucking fingers who's telling the guy in the UFC that, oh, I would have done a rear naked choke. It's like, yeah, sure you would. That's why you're here and I'm here. So it just seems to me like more people are just taking the role of observer of in the stands. It's like there's no barrier of entry to the field. There's no security. Like what? Why are you watching other people play video games? Have you thought to play video? And dude, remember as kids, your mom, if you, for at least for me, was like, if you play video games, like why aren't you outside playing sports? Like why aren't you outside fucking doing? Now it's like just play video games. Why? How much are these kids making? Have you seen the contracts for these esport virgins?
Yeah.
Holy fuck, man. Because now it's like, oh, at least they're doing it. At least they're playing video games in a chair that looks like a grand touring seat in some McLaren. Like it blows my mind the level of inaction that people choose to adopt, and I don't understand the lure of sitting on the sidelines. Because guess who usually has the opinions? Like every now and then we'll talk about a LeBron that pops up with a social issue. Everyone with a fucking Facebook account has an opinion. It's like, look.
That's the worst.
It is the worst.
But even in that analogy, like the guy in like the touring seat playing the games, he's at least doing the thing, right?
Exactly.
He's not the keyboard warrior trying to like tear down the person doing the thing.
But I'm pissed at the world that we're at the point where there's commendation to be laid at the feet of the guy who plays video games.
Yeah.
Right? That life has become so unenriching that there's an enrichment value to watching this guy play Nazi zombies. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm somewhere in the middle on it, right? If you're good at something and you can make millions of dollars doing it, you fucking do that thing until you can't do that thing anymore, right? And if that's playing video games, like, I'm not going to hate on you for doing the thing you're good at.
No, and I don't know if
I understand it, but
I'd love to get someone on. I'd love to get Adil Khan, crazy thing. Adil is the regenerative medicine specialist that I work with out of Canada. He does like all the second gen PRP and stem cell and cytokine crap.
Yeah.
Crap. Most emerging science.
Insert, I don't really know what he does with those words.
That's a better disclaimer. But he was actually ranked number 1 in the world in Halo. If anyone who played it, so I had friends when I was in high school who got big into like LAN parties and stuff. They didn't get laid much. But I messaged them one day. I was like, yo, do you guys know the gamer tag Wrath of Khan? Khan. I think that's it. Or Kahn. He's like, yeah, man, that guy was like the best Halo player in the world. I was like, that guy is now like one of the foremost regenerative medicine specialists on the planet. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'll never knock someone for doing the damn thing. What I'm knocking is, how did the fabric of society deteriorate to that thing being enriching? And it's like, look, if it enriches that guy's life, 100%. Dude, go for it. Whatever makes you happy, man. Like, as long as you're not hurting no one. Dude, I'm so left liberal on that. I don't give a fuck what you do. I have no, what you eat don't make me shit. Don't give a fuck. Like, go do it. What saddens me is the fact that him doing it brings so much pleasure to to other people. And it's not that the fact that I don't think those people deserve to be happy. It's just there's a level of complacency or passivity or inaction in those people in gaining pleasure from something so inert, right? Like there's no benefit to it, right? Like LeBron can play basketball and inspire a kid to play basketball. Right, but now LeBron plays basketball and inspires kids to watch NBA 2K10 with some guy playing a video game of playing basketball.
So are you more upset that this is the vehicle that people choose to use their effort on, we'll say, to play a video game rather than to go do something out in the world?
It's because it's a dead end.
Yeah.
It doesn't inspire further action for future generations to then inspire future action, right? Like, if you think of the inspirational figures of the last 100 years, right? They all incited. I think of bands, or even like, you know, there are bands that every great band that you listen to says like, yo, they were the fuck. Like Tool to me is a pretty underrated band, right? But if you talk about guys who are playing music, they're like, yo, it was Tool, right? So like they inspired a generation to pick up guitars and go out and fucking rip.
Right.
And it's like, but now it's, you know, you're inspiring a bunch of people to learn how to play your jams on Guitar Hero, or like watch someone play it on Guitar Hero. Like it's a dead end to me, man. Like I don't see the cyclical approach of inspiration and driving further action for future generation. I see this as like, well, this is where the train stops. The momentum and creativity, like the world changes on the backs of so few people, right? Like in the last 100 years, you could probably pick out maybe 10 or 15 people in however many tens of billions of people that have existed that have fundamentally shifted the way we all live our lives, right? Like there's certain people, certain technologies, there's certain medical advances, there's certain, political figures who have really shaped, or social figures, Martin Luther King, right? Gandhi, Rosa Parks drove that's like fucking 3 people. There's 3 people in this room. What? Like, and now it's you're not going to see those rallying cries. You're not going to see because those were different calls to action. The call to action was the Salt March. The call to action was like, what is it? The March on Selma, right? With the Martin Luther King thing. It's like now the call to action is swipe up.
Yeah, so what do you think about this whole like generation that the call to action, like what about the GameStop thing on the stock market?
Hilarious.
Like fucking a Reddit thread like fucked Wall Street, like a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund or something went broke. Like that's a very real call to action that happened through a Reddit thread. So it's almost like this thing that's like this abstract world of the internet is kind of intertwined with, you know, things that could actually have an effect on a larger scale in that way. Like, it's kind of a fucked up thing.
Yeah. My thing with the GameStop was always, this is exactly how the stock market has worked for those people who owned the hedge funds to begin with, right? Manipulating stock values and dumping stocks and all that was exactly how the big boys were playing it. And they're just mad that the kids came through and made it happen.
It's kind of like those 2 generations that you mentioned earlier, like the 35 and above is like getting figured out by this younger generation. Like, hey, we could do it better.
But here's the thing, and this is what I've noticed as I've gotten older, is as you get older, you tend to more conservative values. As you're younger, and maybe I don't know if I'm a direct correlation to that, because I feel like I've assumed more risk as I've gotten older, because I maybe grew up in riskier circumstances as a kid, right? So it's like once I'm out of a position where it's like I no longer have the risk of not eating food, or like the risk of not being able to afford rent, that is like I'm kind of liberated in a sense of let's get maybe more liberal and more creative. But I would say most people's trajectory in their life would be liberal as coming into university or undergrad, and then more conservative as you then progress forward through your life. You have to be. You can't be like, I know kids who grew up and their parents were super liberal, and the kids were kind of fucked up, right? Like they were like, yeah, whatever, man. Yo, you want to smoke a joint at 10? All right, whatever. Super liberal. So I think it's just, I don't know. I like to see it. I like to see the shift in power dynamic. But look, man, like, I don't know if the Rothschilds are a good example, but old school, analog days, pre-digital, power and competency, and I've talked about this in the past, were much closely linked than they are now. And I think through the time, through the continuum of history, power and competency have only been getting further apart and dividing the chasm. If we were chimps, right? An incompetent chimp was not a powerful chimp, nor was a weak chimp a competent chimp. right? Or there was no competency born in weakness and then in that ecosystem. But because we're getting away from survival being a basic need that we need to fulfill, we can start to look at like entertainment now as like a thing that we need to fulfill more than anything else. Like we need to just have this story told to us. We're on the needle of this thing. We're constantly trying to get drip fed this serotonin dump where it's like, if you got real problems, like this stuff doesn't exist. Like no one in, I don't know, what's a pretty distraught place in the world. Like North Koreans give a fuck about GameStop. They got to worry about whatever the fuck goes on in North Korea, like booting it across the demilitarized zone to try and get into South Korea. Right. So it's like, I just think people they need to find problems. And I think because the power and competency divide is bigger, you're starting to see, like, look, people who started banks and shit were probably pretty competent at banking crap, right? And then that, like, the Louis Moraney, the fucking, the 2008 housing crisis, that worked for a really long time, right? Like, that mortgage-backed securities thing worked for a really long time until the divide in power and competency got too great. And then the whole thing toppled over. So I just think there has to be, I'm hoping that the generation underneath sees it. Like, I hope it's a pendulum swing. That the generation underneath, like these 20-something-year-old kids who are just now this generation's liberal iteration, which, maybe back in, like, our parents' days or maybe a little bit after that was like, yeah, man, like, don't go to Vietnam, stick it to the man, like, government, whatever. That was their generation of it. And now our generation is, you can't say that. You can't say, what are you saying that for? I'm offended at this, that, and the other. I just want to sit back and watch everything and try and have all the power without any of the competency, right? But that's not how the world works, and we see that. So that's like what I'm hoping is that coming up under this generation, there's going to be like, I hope 10-year-olds are like the baddest dudes and chicks on the planet. Like I want 10-year-olds to be starting fight clubs. Like just go out on a recess.
A renaissance of the early 90s?
I think so. Yeah, man. Like, dude, there's this thing when you play hockey in Canada when we were kids. It's called helmets and gloves. It's like, hey, all right, after this, you did like a cheap shot on the ice during a hockey practice. You're like, yo, helmets and gloves after practice. And I was like, okay, yeah, I fucked up. And you literally, what you did was everyone like got real quiet. We locked the doors so the coaches couldn't come in. The two guys that had a beef, they would, they'd get down into shorts and a t-shirt or whatever, no shirt, and they would put on their helmets and they would put on their gloves and they would just brawl. And the rule is you could only punch the guy in the face. Like no body shots. But we had these helmets on, so it's all good. Like how many friends, and I don't want to use the R word again, but how many friends I have who like aren't right in the head? Because, like, I remember this one time, it was Adam Moore and Mitchell McBrain went helmets and gloves. And we had to explain to the coaches why Adam Moore had a broken hand and Mitchell McBrain had a concussion without telling them that they got into a fight where it was so clearly just punched him in the head. I want 10-year-olds to assemble fight clubs. I want them to start, like, swearing at their teacher. It has to come back because it's like, dude, we're so far afield. Like, the level of, like, the level of disengagement, the level of inaction, the passivity, the complacency, the lack of values, the feeling of the right or entitlement to be entertained, to me, it just blows my mind. Because at a certain point, like, that's going to just prove a huge divide in power and competency, and something else is going to topple over.
Do you think that the internet's just like a void, though, that, like, it's replacing that same void of generations past? Like, smoking pot and listening to records and protesting Vietnam, and that's just what those people do now, and then the people that are still going to excel are going to excel. Like you said, homie was like a killer gamer at Halo, and he still excelled enough to the point where his PhD, he's a MD now, to the point where people that are going to succeed regardless of what everyone else is doing. And do you think it's just everyone else is doing something different in this scenario?
Yeah, I don't know if it opens up more net opportunities, but it also brings to light people's ability to drag people down, and that's I think my biggest thing. Like I think maybe, and this is maybe an interesting question, and I don't know if you'll ever get an answer, but does the internet pose as many opportunities that are capitalized on as it also tears down? I don't know, man. I've looked at YouTube comment sections. It's a lot of people just cutting people up. It was so weird. I was driving with Tess last night, and I remember I was driving by the Whole Foods in Brickell. And I remember when we were here last 3 years ago, I was on the corner. I was waiting for an Uber to pick me up. And there was a double-decker bus with the top with like no roof on it. And there was a guy on it. And then there was a guy up on the top. And they were stuck in traffic because the bridge was up. If anyone knows that part of Miami, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And so the bridge was up, so the bus was just kind of sitting there. There was a dude on the sidewalk, and I was waiting on the other corner. And guy on the sidewalk was like noticeably upset about something, like kind of yelling into his phone. Inaudible, couldn't really hear what it was. Miami's a crazy city. People yelling all the time. Guy on the bus yells down to the guy on the sidewalk, tells him to shut the fuck up or something. Guy on the sidewalk looks up, goes, dude, I just got a call from the cops that my kid just died. That was the YouTube comment section in real life. And this guy doubled down. The guy said, good. That's what this guy said. I didn't know what to do, man. Like, I've never been, because you see it on the comment section, but it's not real. It's some guy with a fucking cat with his login with a fake anonymous 3207 account, and he's talking shit, and somehow everyone's Hitler on YouTube. And it's like, dude, it's bleeding out of the bandwidth, man. It's on the streets.
Yeah.
That was 3 years ago, man. I think about, like, I was driving the other day, and when I was driving by that corner, I thought about it, and I told Tess, and I almost cried. Like, because I think, like, dude, where's the heart, man? Like, you come down off the bus and you give the guy a fucking hug. You apologize for the rest of your life. The guy doubled down. He said, good. I was like, what is, man, I'm out. Wow. Like, I'm out. And that's what scares me, man, is like, this, because there's no consequence anymore. Like, I don't want to live in a world where someone could do that, man. Like, that to me was the scariest moment of like, okay, the simulation is not, it doesn't stop at a screen now. Like, the whole thing's a screen. I
see it the most with the way that kids treat their parents. You see how, like, there's things that kids do to their parents nowadays, like the way they talk to them and the level of disrespect that they have, that, like, if I were to do that growing up, I would have gotten my ass beat.
100%, man. And you
crazy.
Yeah. For me, you absolutely, and there's a reason I address people the way I do is because I was taught consequence at a really young age. Yeah. Like, and I'm not saying like I have black eyes and I had to make up some bullshit, but it's like you were gonna. I remember I lived in St. Catharines prior to moving to Windsor, and I was 4. One of the first, like, I was forming memories. Like, I have a few flash memories when I lived in this house in St. Catharines, which is like kind of by Niagara Falls. One of the, like, I feel like my memory started, the first memory I formed was me consuming soap. The first memory, like, welcome to life forever. This is your first memory. Was Louise Shallow literally made me eat soap. That's some old school shit, bro. Like, she literally was like, I don't know, I swore or something. And I was 5. I've been only talking for a few years. And she's like, no, you're going to learn. You're going to learn that you can't do that. You're going to clean out your mouth. And I literally, bro, hand to fucking God, my mom sat there. I was 4. And she made me eat soap. The first memory I have as a human being living on this earth is the taste of antibacterial hand soap from my parents' ensuite bedroom in St. Catharines, Ontario. That shit doesn't happen. Yeah, yo, shout out Louise Shallow, bro. Like, that's a gangster move. That's like owing someone money and putting all of their hands on the trunk and fucking slamming it and breaking all of their fingers. That's when my mom pulled out some gangster stuff. And she didn't give a fuck that I was 4 because she gave a fuck what I was going to be like when I was 40. Right? And that's what kids are missing, man. And it's just, I don't know what it's going to take. I thought about maybe like putting in the draft. I'd go into the military if it meant I never had to see that guy yell down at the guy on the street whose kid just died and said, good. I would fucking serve time if you can guarantee me that people were taught enough fucking respect to never see that happen again. Enlist me right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what to do with this, but I'm real scared.
Yeah, no, I do understand. That's the safety of being able to say things anonymously across the internet. And then there's also kind of that safety now in society, because as soon as shit goes down, what does everyone do? They pull out their phone. Yeah. It's all on video. So, like, even cops wear, like, a camera now, too.
Yeah.
So it's like everything's being recorded. Everything is going to be able to be reviewed and ridiculed regardless of context. So it's like we're kind of living by internet rules now, even in real life.
And that's what I think, man. Like, I've said this in the past, but I think Instagram, Facebook, Clubhouse, these are all new forms of government. Right? Who
are the most powerful people in the world?
Well, dude, you see Zuck up on Capitol Hill just toying with these old people, you know, deactivating their Farmville accounts or whatever. Like, he doesn't give a fuck, man. Like, it's Marxism, man. Where's the money go? I'd love to live in a world, and it's nice to be in Miami, man. And it's crazy to me to say this, and I've said it a few times. If you would have told me 10 years ago that you had to go to Florida for normalcy, it's like, no. You go to Florida to get eaten by an alligator and rig elections. Like, you go to Florida for copious amounts of cocaine and quick access to the Bahamas. But now it's like, look, there's consequences here, man. Like, you go up into Little Haiti and you try and pull some shit, right? You go to Hialeah, you go north, you go on like 82nd Street. You headed up to the 95 South. Go ahead. Yeah, you're going to see some gang colors. You're going to see some shit. You don't stop at stop signs because there's consequences. Like, I would love in 5 years to just be able to walk around with just a knuckle duster on, just to let people know, like, there's going to be a consequence. And I think that's one of the weird caveats and catch-22s to my relationship with the States in the last however many years I've lived here. It's like there's still that amendment. There's still, like, you don't know. Like, does he got a heater in the door? Does he got a heater in the door? And you know me, but we have documented history of my take on guns on this podcast. Like, some of the earlier conversations we've ever had were about guns. And you grew up in a place where that was totally normal.
Yeah.
But you grew up in a place where you understood consequence, right? Like,
responsibility.
Sure,
that's
absolutely.
The thing is, something like that carries a lot of weight. It carries a lot of responsibility. The way I was taught, if you're going to carry a gun on you, you need to be able to accept the consequences that come with that. Yeah. If you're in an altercation and you have a gun and you decide to draw that gun and that other person or someone around them has a gun, you're putting your life on the line. You're endorsing the fact that you need to now pull the trigger if you want to protect your life, and there's going to be repercussions for that, whatever those might be.
And that's what I love, that balance of, like, yeah, you got a right to carry it, but you got a responsibility to, like, brandish it. And I think that's where there's a divide, right? Like,
we lost them.
Lost the phone. This can do more damage than a SIG. Yeah. Without a doubt. This could ruin someone's life more. Like, I know people who've gotten shot. Our buddy Tone lives down in he's been shot 13 times, close range.
Fuck?
Yeah.
Is he like hang out with 50 Cent or something?
Dude, Tone was, and I might try and get him on the podcast next week. Tone's an OG. Tone was in the second Suburban when Pac got shot.
Tone's a fucking G.
Tone is a G, man. Like, he's like 56 years old, but like Tone has like disuse atrophy with his entire right leg because he got close range with a sawed off, right? But it's like there's a right and responsibility balance that I think is off because everyone has the right to use this, but no one uses this fucking thing responsibly, or not many people use this thing responsibly. And this is like me sitting in here unholstered with a revolver. That's how dangerous this is, and people don't see it that way. They don't see the consequence of this.
Yeah.
Right? And this is when I say you got to holster this, I'm not saying wear it like the douchebag guy who uses the belt clip as a holster. Like, you got to check yourself, right? But I don't know, man. I really hope people get on board because the consequences are coming. If the universe has taught us everything, it's like, yo, the other shoe's dropping. Yeah. So I think you either going to have the consequences forced on you very abruptly in some sort of huge like shift in the way we operate in society, or we can each take a responsibility now to our right to access this. And if people don't start doing that at the individual level, it's coming. Like, something is coming, and it's not going to be good.
It's hard, man. It's all still so new. Like,
right.
it's not even a generation old. Like, this generation growing up now will be the first generation that grew up with like internet access, right?
And shit, yeah.
Yeah, in their pocket, right? I don't think I got a cell phone until I was in like high school, and at that point it was like you play the worm game and you like have to hit the button 3 times to do an N or whatever.
Yeah, and
like
you used to call your mom to pick you up from the movies.
Exactly. It's like a different world now. There's a whole economy. There's a whole ecosystem in your pocket. Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I don't know, man. I feel like we should make RX Radio knuckle dusters. Like that should be our
It would sell out in a second.
I'm down. That's 100%. I'm all in for that. I don't know, man. I feel like I'd be interested to get. So this is what I want. I want action. Obviously,
Action.
This is going to be on YouTube now because we do video podcasts. I don't know how.
I'm scared to see the comment section.
I just love the fact that, dude, 250 episodes later, however long many it's been, we're back in Miami, and as a very different company, as a very, I don't know, different reach, different crew of people, but the same stupid shit we've been talking about for 10 fucking years.
Yeah.
So we'll put a wrap on this one, but interested to hear what you guys say. The video podcast, obviously, this is going to be up on YouTube and Spotify. If you fuck around in the comment section, so help you God, there will
Shallow's
be consequences.
coming to your house with the knuckle
dusters. If you're
dusters.
pre-script, at the very least, the one thing I'm most proud of, people that fuck with us, professional,
Not
empathetic,
trolls.
understanding. They're supportive. They don't tear anyone down. If I ever see anyone who's taken one of our courses being a fucking piece of shit on the internet, I got your billing address, motherfucker. Just gonna ski mask you. But no, and that's
Let's
something that
consult our lawyer about that last statement.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's the one thing. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And Spotify, iTunes. Hit the subscribe button. I think that matters.
Subscribe,
I don't know.
iTunes, download the podcast episodes.
Right. So Spotify, iTunes, now YouTube. That's it. That's a wrap. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, guys.